who are some of those teams that are flying under the radar that deserve some more credit? Well, we'll talk about it right now. I think LSU is a massively slept-on team to this point in the year. And slept-on is maybe even the wrong word, but like you look at the SEC, and there's just so many major headlines that are sort of causing LSU to fly under that radar. Like I just said, Georgia, they're a monster. They are the favorite to win the national title for a reason. Alabama, new era out there. Kalen DeBoer played for a national title last year. What are they going to be this year? Texas, they entered the conference as a college football playoff team. What are they going to be? And then you got Brian Kelly just chilling there, probably at on his jet ski in Baton Rouge or wherever he was on his jet ski at. I don't pretend to know. But he's on his jet ski with the 2 10-win seasons under his belt since he's gotten to LSU. You say, well, JD, the defense isn't, the defense lacks this, they lack that. Well, the defense also has got Harold Perkins on it. They're going to go shopping in the portal, I promise you, for some more talent. And they got a defensive coordinator last year at Missouri who came to LSU to bring the heat. That defense is going to be a lot better this year, I promise you. But Jaden Daniels, you won the Heisman Trophy. He's not there anymore. You got the gumbo gunslinger, baby, getting that wing loose, getting ready to go throw it all over the yard, Uncle Rico style. Garrett Nussmeier's a dude. I fully believe that. LSU fans that have watched him play, you know that. The knock on him is, well, he likes to throw the ball around the yard too much, likes to be a little bit too aggressive downfield. That's okay. We can coach that. In fact, Joe Sloan coached Jaden Daniels to push the ball downfield a little bit more. I would much rather coach a quarterback to ratchet it down a little bit more. That means he wants to push the ball deep. And then you say, well, Malik Neighbors isn't there. Brian Thomas isn't there. Shout out the Ponderosa, the message board on our LSU On 3 site, the Bengal Tiger. Malik Neighbors, first-round pick, so we're on the same page. Those guys aren't there anymore. That's going to change the offense too, right? Yeah, I suppose it could. C.J. Daniels, though, from Liberty, he's a 1,000-yard receiver. You got through the portal. Kyron Lacey, I expect him to do massive numbers like Goodwill Hunting this year, getting more targets for that big body. Nussmeier has shown in multiple spots his growth. I think the bowl game was a tremendous example of that. 400 yards, give or take, in that game. Okay, 395. We'll be generous, again, 400 there. And Brian Kelly also, his year 3 effect cannot be overlooked. Brian Kelly, when he gets a third year, typically, I say when he gets a third year, Brian Kelly in his third year is what I'm trying to say here, usually does very, very good things. Like at Cincinnati, his third year there, made the Orange Bowl. Notre Dame, his third year there, made the national championship game. So bet against LSU if you want to. Talk about other teams if you want to. We do it on this show as well, but LSU deserves a lot more buzz than they're getting right now, if you ask us. Now, Michigan, it's funny. Michigan, they won the national title last year. They hoisted that trophy, had the confetti drop on them in Houston. We were there. We saw it. It was massive for that program. It was massive for that brand, massive for that fan base. And then you fast forward the clock a few months, new quarterback, new head coach, and everyone's talking about Ohio State. Everyone's talking about Oregon. Michigan's just chilling there with the Big Ten championship in Ann Arbor and the national championship in Ann Arbor. Like, okay, you don't want to talk about us? That's fine. They are 128th in returning production. It's not great. But the thing that has to be said about Michigan, I think, is they still have guys that, one, played a very real role in a depth capacity last year. So just because they weren't racking up all the stats doesn't mean they aren't still really good players. The other part of this, they are still guys on that roster that are part of the development monster and the process that's in-house in Ann Arbor. So just because you don't know the names just yet, just because we haven't seen them on that all Big Ten team just yet, doesn't mean they're not going to end up there. Okay? Michigan typically taking the high 3-star guy, the low 4-star guy, and been able to have some pretty good success with those kind of players and beyond that. They also still have some staples within that team that are back. We talk about him a lot on this show, but I'll do it one more time. Colston Loveland, he may very well be the best tight end in America when we open up the season. Donovan Edwards, you saw him be a 1-2 punch with Blake Corum. Kind of took more of a backseat approach last year in that running back room. He'll be the bell cow this year. Who's playing quarterback? Great question, but you got a lot of defense and guys on that defense that are back, from Kenneth Grant to Will Johnson. Like, you know these names. Those guys are still there. That culture is still there. Michigan, keep an eye on the Wolverines. I'm excited to watch what they do. Now, A&M. A&M is a team, it's ironic really that A&M's not getting a ton of buzz right now in the offseason. And again, some of it has to do with the SEC and all those headlines we already talked about. I truly think with Texas A&M, there is some sort of fatigue going on with talking about them from the spring through the summer into the fall. And when I say there's some fatigue, how many times did you hear somebody sit up here at a desk behind a microphone like this with a national logo in front of them and say, A&M's a college football playoff team. A&M's going to win the SEC. A&M's going to insert some sort of lofty accolade there. Well, they've been burned a couple of times doing that. The first time, or I guess 2 years ago, to the 5-7, and that was a mission failed by all parties involved. And then you went 7-5 this past year. It is what it is. So I think some folks are maybe feeling like they got burned by touching that stove. That was A&M. And now they're trying to backtrack and figure out a way to assess them appropriately. I'll tell you what, we right here on this show, not to pat ourselves on the back, we didn't necessarily drink that Kool-Aid around A&M and them being a college football playoff team. But the thing with A&M, the problem was never the engine that was the roster talent within College Station. They always had dudes. And that was the reason why they got the accolades preseason that folks gave them, because they had a lot of guys with a lot of stars next to their name. But the thing with them that wasn't going right was, from where I'm standing, they did not have the proper culture or standards, or however you want to dissect it. There was not the right internal processes in place, schematic or otherwise, to capitalize on that roster talent. Well, the teacher, the internal structure, the staff, that's no longer there in College Station. And that's not to dunk on Jimbo Fisher. I'm just saying, if the Jimmies and Joes were of a certain caliber and the results did not reflect the Jimmies and Joes caliber, who do you point the finger at? The processes and the staff and those putting those Jimmies and Joes in place. So now you bring in Mike Elko, who did more with less at Duke, and he brings in a structure that I think could honestly change the entire outlook for A&M in 2024. I'm just saying, however quickly they take to his new structure is how successful they're going to be. They went 7-5 last year with a quarterback that was, or I'll rephrase that. They went 7-5 last year with a quarterback that was not their starter, seemingly structural issues within their program. What can they do when they correct those? What can they do with the starting quarterback and better structure? I'm excited to see it. But A&M, I understand the fatigue around them, but I would not be surprised if they were a major disruptor in 2024. We'll say that again. Last thing we want to get to here, Penn State. Remember Penn State was kind of that trendy team last year? A lot of folks picked them to be a college football playoff team. A lot of folks picked them to win the Big Ten. I think actually halfway through the season, we had them pegged as a college football playoff team, so hand up, that's on us too. There's a lot of reason for excitement from last year for them, and we get that, but those same reasons I think are still in place. Like, the reason why you were so fired up about Penn State last year, us included, was because you had Drew Aller playing quarterback, who's got a throwing arm touched by God, right? I mean, he can do some things physically that you haven't had a quarterback in Happy Valley that's consistently able to do those things. He's still there. That running back room, one of the best in the country in Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, that's still there. The defense, you lost some pieces to the NFL. No way around that. Abdul Carter, that absolute freak show, that nightmare that wears number 11 for opposing offenses, he's still there. So I understand that there was a lot of missed expectations last year with still losing to Michigan and still losing to Ohio State, but I don't think they're nearly as far off as a lot of folks want to pretend. To me, they're literally missing one ingredient, and that was the vertical pass game. They're one of the worst teams in the country when it comes to the yards per pass. Julian Fleming transfers in from Ohio State to Penn State. If they can just be more explosive vertically, Drew Aller's going to be more comfortable as a quarterback this year, I think, with having another season now under his belt playing college football. There's no Michigan on the schedule. There's no Oregon on the schedule. There's no Iowa on the schedule. And you get Ohio State at home. So I understand a lot of buzz around other teams, and deservedly so, but Penn State now, kind of that middle child of the Big Ten, I would be slow to disrespect the Nittany Lions. So LSU, Michigan, A&M, and Penn State, I believe, just need a little RESPECT. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.